Hello and welcome to Unapologetics, the podcast where we read a Christian article and explain why it's stupid. And I am Brently, and we've got Matt with us here today. How you doing, Matt?
I'm awesome today, Brent. Thanks for having me on again.
You bet, man. It's always a pleasure. Always. And we got a fun one today. It's sort of political, sort of Christiany. It's kind of in the intersection of Christian and right wing. So that's kind of fun. So this is what the Bible says about gun rights.
And
And
surprise, the Bible doesn't say anything about gun rights because guns were still 1,000 years away. More, almost 2,000 years away.
oh my god, it's so weird. It's like I feel like half of this they don't understand like why people are against guns. Like they just don't. I don't know. They just don't get the whole concept of the problem here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot.
This whole argument can be traced back to needing like a classical education, like actually being taught history. Because if they just studied like how the French Revolution played out, this argument would be like put down.
No shit. Really? Why? Why is that? What happened in the
Well,
French Revolution?
so the French were like the first after the French monarchy was overthrown. They were the first modern nation state to allow their regular people to have guns and arms on a large scale, and they did it to make themselves. It was a pretty chaotic time, so if every person that an invading army came across could shoot back, it made you not want to invade that country.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see
So
that.
it was just like half lawless. Everybody had guns, and it horrified all of their neighbors. Like nobody had ever done it before. It was crazy sauce at the time.
Oh, I bet.
And
Shit.
we're the only country still using this model.
Well, because I keep hearing this. So it seems like the main argument that I hear for like why we definitely should absolutely have to have, military grade weaponry is in case the government like starts to try to take us out, um, which makes no sense, because they're always going to have the bigger thing, which is what gun stuff is all about. It's just whoever has the biggest one wins.
Yeah,
And
offense, the balance between offense and defense. Yeah.
yeah, right. And so I keep hearing that, and like they keep on saying things like, and tell me what you think of this. They keep on like saying this one, Dallas in particular is who I keep hearing this from, but I've heard it other places as well, where they say that every socialist or communist government has always made it their goal to take away the arms from the citizenry. So they want an unarmed citizenry so they can, you know, fuck fuck them whenever they feel like it or something. I'm not really sure like what
I mean,
exactly.
it's true in a sense that yeah, authoritarian governments do that, but so does every other government. That's like cherry picking.
Okay.
So in almost no other country is it legal to have a bunch of arms. Lots of countries allow you to have like hunting rifles and stuff, but things like handguns are pretty frowned upon.
Huh. Okay. So like, oh, because hunting now that shit makes sense. All right. Like if you're out in a fucking cabin, and there's bears around or something, I get that. That
Yeah,
that makes perfect fucking sense. Yeah.
and
It's
lots of
it's
people hunt.
right. Yeah, and it's just a fun sport thing. Like I mean, I would say what you will about the sportiness of it or whatever, but which is fine. Like, but yeah, I mean, but as far as just safety goes out there, you got to have some kind of rifle. What I'm against generally is being able to clear out a room of children at an elementary school in a matter of like 2 minutes,
Yeah,
and taking out like 20 some odd kids in 2 minutes. That's what I'm not okay with. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So there's a line somewhere, right?
yeah.
Uh,
I'm with you.
but and I feel like they don't get that. They don't feel like there's a lot. I've even heard. I think it was fucking David Barton, the pseudo historian
Oh
guy.
yeah, the boring liar. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a great. That's a great. Yeah, that's what we should call him. Yep. Um, he said I had a clip of him being like, "Look, if nuclear weapons, yeah. I mean, I don't want my neighbor to nuke me, but I'd hope that, but I think we should all be able to have nukes because we should be able to nuke the person back if they nuke us.
That's great. Give everyone highly explosive radioactive material. What could go wrong?
We'd like end cities over parking spots, man. Like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you talking about?
Road rage is like now an existential crisis in society. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like the fallout from just driving is for like centuries. Jesus Christ.
I mean,
Uh,
we could like argue with that guy and knock that out as like that violates the surrounding people's civil rights.
right. I
Like,
feel like they don't get civil rights. That's where I start to not like. I feel like they don't understand that shit. It
yeah,
just
your neighbor having a nuke is just you having your rights removed on a timer, on a time bomb.
yeah. Just whenever they get pissed off, that's when you lose your fucking rights. Like,
Yeah.
don't move next to them. Like, is what you'd have to like. Well, how many people have nuclear bombs in that area? Because that's like how you would decide to move a fucking place. That's
That's a crazy idea. I can't believe a grown man said that out loud.
I know, right? It's toddler shit, seriously.
Well,
But okay,
he gets paid a lot of money in speaking fees to say those things, so
good. That's
I get
true.
why he says it.
Yeah, it's like it's the Ben Shapiro model of, can you come up with an argument for this? Can you do that? I got that. I'll be right there with that. Yep, I got you an argument. Yep.
Oh, never let the Ben Shapiro dry memes die. Well, we can never let him forget that he said that.
He said his wife said that a wet vagina is a disease. Yes, we need to keep that.
Yours is a good size, I promise, honey.
Jesus Christ. Oh, it's awesome. So, all right, so we'll get into this. This is from Off the Fucking Grid. No, it's not Off the Fucking Grid, but it's Off the Grid news, which I was so happy when I found this. I was like, oh my God, this is like a libertarian fucking dream website, it's got tons of off-grid foods. You got foods, you got survival gardening, because that's something.
Wait, does Jim Baker sell his food buckets here?
No, no, I don't think he does. That's a separate revenue stream.
Holy
For
crap,
him.
I didn't even look at the ads around the screen. Oh, yeah. Here's a link to tell you how to relocate, a manual on how to relocate to a safe place.
Yeah,
and
what is that?
And they're oddly selling solar panels because these people generally hate renewable energy. But
Right.
once you go off the grid enough, you have to have solar panels. So then they get all green and hippie-like at the same time. It's a weird juxtaposition.
Dude, it really is. And it's so funny to hear like these fucking, because I've talked to a couple of people like this, and they'll go from like super hardcore right-wing fascists to like hippy dippy shit just so they can be independent of the grid and stuff. It's just so funny. Because our whole thing is that we want the entire grid to go hippy dippy. That's that's what I'd like to see. You know what I mean? I'd like us to see, like to see less, you know, uh, you know, what is it called, gas powered energy or whatever, used on such a wide level here, and so for it to all go to the green stuff would be great for me. But it's funny because they like the green stuff just so they can be separate from the grid and everything, because that's all bad. That's communism. That's whatever.
Yeah, but when they're not home, they hate it, and the windmills are awful, and yeah,
they kill birds.
yeah.
So stupid. Oh man. So they start out the quote, and this is hilarious to me because it's like they do give the whole quote. It's like, this is your article, man. You don't have to give the full quote. And they're like, a well-regulated militia. That's the three words. The four words that start this thing are a well-regulated militia. I feel like you've already defeated your entire fucking point right there. But I don't know. I guess we'll keep going. Being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Second Amendment, United States Constitution.
Yep. Can we stop right there?
Yeah, let's do it.
For one line. So how everybody thinks of the NRA today, the NRA was not always like that. That change happened in the mid 70s. They were almost entirely a hunting safety club.
No shit. Really?
And gun laws, as crime was going up in the 70s, people were getting kind of anti gun, like percentage of the population wise. And the NRA almost packed up and moved out of the realm of gun
Oh,
safety. Just they were feeling the pressure and they were going to retreat. And they had like their annual board meeting. And I can't remember the year. We're just going to say like 1975. So we're like ramping up to like the libertarian Reagan model. And they had a small contingent at the meeting of diehard gun nuts that rose up and took power of the organization and successfully made a little political coup in the organization and created the NRA as we know it today. But the NRA had been around for like 100 years and they were a hunting safety club, and that was it up until that point. So
oh
this
shit.
whole argument of everyone has the right to own a gun all the time, anywhere, is a new argument.
Okay, that makes good sense, actually. Holy shit. Okay, so that makes perfect sense. So they took it over in like the mid 70s, and then you're approaching the Reagan era, which basically fucked everything as far as politics goes, and right wing politics specifically. Yeah, and it just played right into that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the concept of the well regulated militia was that each state had the right to field like a not a professional army, not full time soldiers, but like a volunteer firefighter type situation where the guns were kept at a centralized location and everyone would be called to arms to protect the state from the tyranny of the federal government, which I don't think that ever really had to be done. Don't quote me on
I
that
mean,
though.
other than the Civil fucking War, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in modern times, back then, back in Civil War times, there was parity because you had muskets. You didn't even really have rifles yet, so
Yeah.
there was no parity. A hunting rifle and a military rifle were pretty much the same thing.
Right.
So the idea was that if the federal government ever became tyrannical, the states could resist.
Right. It's kind of like a state military, right? Like that's why, or like a state, like what's the word?
Yeah,
Like civilian military that could like, because we're talking about like a small amount of people here. Like this isn't like what we're used to nowadays, where it's like people are fucking everywhere. The Earth is completely like super populated. Like back in the day, New York was not that. Like it was nowhere near what it's pop. It's like might have been like I don't know, like, Sarasota or something, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Florida, right? Like, it's just some small spot or whatever it is, but, at this point, I mean, but it wasn't that many people back then, and so it was just a completely different world, for them to be like deciding that everybody should be able to have the these weapons or whatnot. But like the way that they argue it is that they seem to think that we should all have the same military grade weaponry in case the government tries to like kill us, I guess, or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it's just not the same. It's just it doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't pan out as far as I can tell.
No, and the government isn't coming to tyrannically take control of its citizenry. That's just not the way our government works. And every other Western democratic society has pretty strong gun laws. Like every single one. They don't have the gun crime that we do because they don't have the guns, and their governments aren't tyrannically ruling their people either. The democratic system is actually what protects us from that.
Damn. See, yeah, okay. Thankfully, I mean, we're keeping them at bay at least a little bit, but the fucking NRA has so much goddamn money and power. It's kind of freaky. But here, let me start this out here. So, it says it is amazing how so few words can grant such freedom to a nation and how they can cause such divisiveness between Americans. To those of us who recognize and honor our founders' intent in this amendment, it is perfectly clear that this refers to a right of individuals and that the militia is comprised of the entire body of an armed citizenry. I no, I mean, I don't think that's that's accurate.
Well,
Um,
the way that the government was set up, that was like the safeguard, right? But the dynamic between weapons and people and government has changed since then. It's just outdated. It's
yeah.
not a model that works anymore.
Right. Okay. And it still says well regulated. It's I feel like they always forget that part. Like it's a regulated militia.
Yeah, you have to have members of the militia, and they have to be drilled and trained. It can't just be some drunk red guy in the woods with an AR-15 claiming he's a militia. That's not what a militia is.
Right? Which is basically what we got at this point. We got a bunch of fucking nutbags out in the woods being like, "We're a fucking army."
Yeah, but
Pretend like
pre takeover of the NRA, this is how everyone understood it.
okay. That makes sense. As Christians, we should also be aware that the right to keep and bear arms is one of the inalienable rights with which our Creator has endowed us. You know, so he's like really needling at the Creator thing. If there is any doubt about it, turn to Scripture for guidance in this matter, and rest assured that the Bible supports your right to be armed.
And
Um,
spoiler alert, I looked up all of his Bible verses he used to justify this, and that's not what they're saying.
No shit, really.
Yeah.
It's all taken out of context. I mean, dude, that's like the main thing with the Bible is it doesn't matter. As long as the words are there, that seems to be all that matters to them.
Yeah.
You know, when it's convenient, or like unless it's like you explaining how the Bible is stupid and wrong, and then they're like, "Hey, you're taking it out of context, bro. Read the
That's
whole
right.
verse."
We're going
You
to
know?
put context in this time.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so let us look for a moment at the mindset of our founders. One of the lesser known signatories of the Declaration of Independence, Dr. Benjamin Rush, summed it up rather succinctly when he said, I have alternately been called an aristocrat and a Democrat. I am neither. I am a Christocrat. Oh, God. So there you
Yeah.
have it.
And who is Benjamin Rush? Go fuck yourself.
I don't know. Like, right? Is he signed the Declaration of
He
Independence?
did,
Okay.
but you have to remember that there was a vote that happened when they were putting all this together, and which way did who vote? They don't seem to care. Did just because he eventually signed it after the vote to ratify it was accomplished doesn't tell us what side he was on of that. Rush, I looked through his Wikipedia a little bit. He seems like, besides the fact that he's a pretty religious guy, he seemed like he was a pretty good guy. He was pro suffrage, anti slavery, like way ahead of his time. He was a chemist, pretty smart guy, right? But
Okay.
the fact that he's the only guy that they can name that wanted the Bible in schools is pretty telling. Like, you can't say the founding fathers believed this and then just say, oh, it's just this one, leave out that it was just this one guy.
Yeah, the one guy that nobody's fucking heard of either, you know.
Yeah, of course, because Benjamin Franklin never said that, nor did Thomas Paine. They were all on the right side of this argument. But for all accounts, this guy seemed like he was pretty good. And hold on one second. He was a Methodist, Presbyterian, a Methodist, and one of the founding members of the Unitarianism movement. So
No shit.
he,
Okay. Well, I'm actually yeah, I'm into that. That's all right.
besides believing that the Bible should be in schools, he seemed like he was a fairly moderate guy.
Huh. Okay. Okay, so that was sort of the breakdown of who he was. But so he said, contrary to political correct thoughts, our founders based the cornerstones of our country on biblical principles. No, they didn't. In an eerily uh, prescient moment, Rush stated, by removing the Bible from our schools, we would be wasting so much time and money in punishing criminals and so little pains to prevent crime. Take the Bible out of schools, and there would be an explosion in crime. Any question? And that's the end of the quote. And then they say, "Any questions?" Like as sort of some sort of get, I guess. After that, like, boom,
He,
mic drop.
Yep. I bet though, once we after every conviction, if we asked the person convicted of a crime what their religious views were, I bet that they would be more Christian than the average person.
Probably right.
I mean, people that like the Bible still commit crimes.
A lot, like, yeah, I mean, there were several serial killers that were, like, not only just Christians or whatever, but, like, were well known at their church and whatnot,
Yeah,
right?
it's a great place to hide.
Yeah, exactly. So, in an earlier article, I discussed the biblical justifications for armed defense or self, family, and all innocent life. The biblical position is strong. It stands to reason that if the Bible allows for self defense, it must also allow for the private ownership of arms. As it turns out, it does make provision for exactly that. And now we're about to read from Luke 11:21 and 22. So it tells us that when a strong man armed keepeth his place, his goods are in peace. But when a stronger than he shall come upon him and overcome him, he taketh from him all his armor wherein he trusted and divideth it his spoils.
So let's
So
hear what he thinks this Bible verse says, and then we're going to look at what it actually says.
okay, cool. So, in this piece of scripture, not only demonstrates God's will that we be armed, but also sets the precedent for the castle doctrine. In this case, palace doctrine, in parentheses, of course. They love their little snark in parentheses.
Yes,
Oh my God.
and it does not. So let's look at the context. One sec. It was 35 through 39. Or wait, one sec. 21 and 22.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but if we look back just a couple of numbers earlier, this is not what was going on at all. Um,
They're taking it out of context. That's what they're doing right there.
yep.
They're doing the
Wait,
thing they accuse us of doing all the time.
yes, one second. Luke 11. I had the wrong link open. Luke 11. Okay, so what Jesus is talking about here is a battle between him and Beelzebub. So if we go back to Luke 11:17, it says, Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, any kingdom divided in itself will be ruined, and a house divided against itself will fall. If Satan is divided against himself, how can his kingdom stand? And then it goes on. He's talking about how he has to go to battle against Beelzebub. And then right after the quote that he uses in the article stops, he starts talking about how it's spiritual warfare against the devil. So he's not actually telling anyone to take up arms. This is a metaphor for a spiritual battle between Jesus and Satan.
Ah, so he's talking about being armed with the sword of the spirit, which is the Bible.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to look it up, it is Luke 11:14 through 28 for the full context.
Nice. All right. Yeah, that and I didn't it's funny that you went looked up the verse. I didn't even think to do that honestly because I just was assuming that it was nonsense. But I'm glad you did that though because it really does show that it actually was in fact nonsense even according to their belief system.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just he just looked up arms in a Bible PDF and just found every time that it came up in any
Control F.
context and quoted it, hoping it would make somebody believe.
Right. Oh, Jesus Christ. Ah, see, so the piece of scripture not only demonstrates God. Oh, that's why I read that. We should revisit Luke 22, 35 through 39 at this point to see where Jesus stood on the issue of keeping arms. And he said to them, when I sent you without money bag, knapsack, and sandals, did you lack anything? So they said nothing. Then he said to them, but now he who has a money bag, let him take it, and likewise a knapsack. Okay. And he who has a sword, let him sell his garment and buy one, or who has no sword, sorry, let him sell his garment and buy one. For I say to you that this which is written must still be accomplished in me. I don't really feel like I mean, okay. And he was numbered with the transgressors, for the things concerning me have an end. So they said, Lord, look, here are two swords. And he said to them, it is enough. Coming out, he went to the Mount of Olives as he was accustomed, and his disciples also followed him. Yeah, I feel like that all could have just been not there for this context, what they're trying to say here.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
well,
you're
whatever.
never going to guess where this cherry pick comes from. This comes to from the Last Supper, and where Judas, it's shown in the story that Judas is going to betray Jesus, and he tells his disciples during the supper that he's basically going to be arrested tomorrow, and they're like, "Oh, don't go, we have weapons." And he said, "No, you're going to do fine without me." So the quote, "When I sent you without purse, bag, or sandals, did you lack anything?" is him saying, "You're going to be okay without me."
Oh,
He's not telling them to take up arms. He's telling them that everybody's coming to terms with the fact that Jesus is going to be gone tomorrow.
wow. He's exactly saying not to take up arms.
Yeah, he's
It's like,
saying you guys are going to be good. You have a couple of swords. You're going to be okay.
wow. Okay.
This is not
Wow.
castle doctrine.
Unbelievable. So even in their, because I thought like they could at least, I mean, because to me the whole thing with like swords aren't guns, man. This is stupid. Like,
No,
I mean,
the analogy doesn't work.
it
You
doesn't
can't
have, yeah.
you can't kill someone at 500 yards from cover with a sword.
No, no. It's like, and I'm fine with people owning, and people can own as many swords as they fucking like to. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine with that. That's not what this is about. We're talking about guns, like weapons that can literally eliminate an entire room of elementary school kid children in a matter of under 5 minutes. That's what I'm concerned with.
That, and if you're going to quote Jesus telling you you can have guns, make it at least make the quote true.
Yeah, at least make it like be saying the thing you're trying to make it say. My goodness, like
Yep,
it just
they're
shows.
0 for 2 so far.
Yeah, it just shows how little they'll actually go and look up the Bible verses that they're using to justify their bullshit. But clearly, Jesus supports the right to self-defense. Furthermore, none of that said that, but okay. Furthermore, we can deduce that these arms are for the purpose of defense of self, of the faith, and of the nation. That fucking scares me that he's saying that. Um, in this case, the people that followed Christ to the Mount of Olives. He's basically saying like we should be able to use the guns to like defend our faith, which really freaks me out because their faith is kind of fascisty a little bit. But
Yep.
so then he names another verse. This is John 18:10 through 11. Tells us that when Christ was arrested, then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into the sheath. Shall I not drink the cup which my Father has given me?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is another big swing and a miss. So Jesus goes to the Mount of Olives and he makes his peace with God. And then he goes back into the city where he's arrested, right? So you have a high level official shows up with a guard attachment to take Jesus into custody. And his disciple pulls a sword out and attacks the servant of the high priest. So we can, first of all, we can tell this story is not true, because if that high priest had a contingent of soldiers around him, do you think that they didn't arrest that guy too? You know, he cut
Right.
off his servant's ear. He just doesn't get to walk away from that because Jesus told him to put his sword away. But he also told his servant to put his sword away. We're not taking up arms here. Jesus was a pacifist. Like, you had this, his disciples had to have swords because they're crazy people going to towns preaching this crazy new religion, and yet people get mad and attack them, so they have to like have basic self-defense and not get robbed. But here he's telling his disciple to stop. And if this really happened, his disciple would have instantly gone to jail and been crucified too. The story doesn't make sense, and the way he's using this as justification doesn't make sense.
Yeah, not to mention if I feel like if I went to one of the those blood splatter people, like the what do you call it? The that show. There was that show. Fuck, and I can't think of his name. Anyway, it's a show where a dude's like a serial killer and he's
Dexter.
Dexter, thank you. Yeah, he does like the splatter expert. Like, how many times could you think like you go to that person and be like, how many ears get cut off, man? Like when somebody just strikes at that, like that feels like something that would never happen. I'm sure it could, but holy shit, like how do you like miss a face but get the ear?
You'd have to be a pretty good swordsman, or pin him down and cut it off.
Right. Yeah, you'd have to saw it off like you're like in the Quentin Tarantino movie. Like you couldn't.
And in front of a contingent of soldiers. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's all sorts wrong with that shit.
But he also says, shall I not drink the cup which my father hath given me? The cup that his father has given me, what he's talking about there is the fact that he knows he has to die for everybody's sins. The cup is his destiny that his father has given him. Right. So yeah, don't stop that. Why would we? I don't understand. None of this makes sense. It's so totally out of context.
And again, you didn't have to include that part. Like, you could have just stopped the verse early because he's basically saying, don't fucking use your sword, man. Like, wow. Unbelievable.
Well, knowing the Gospels, they're all radically different. That's probably the only version that has that part in there.
I think so, because that's John, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
That was John.
Yeah, John's the fucky one because it was written that was the last book of the Bible to be written. So it's all just made up nonsense by that point.
Yeah, it's comic book levels of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like once they took the story and turned it into like the craziest thing they could get out of it. But so the admonition was to sheath the weapon, not to abandon or relinquish it. Oh, okay. Well, that's
this
is I'm sorry, that's too funny. Okay. This was not a renunciation. Thank you. Renunciation of defense. Merely a statement that was not the time for it. Jesus might just as easily have said, "Stand down, soldier. I've got this one under control."
Disciples, not soldiers. Pacifists.
Exactly. He turned him from that to like soldiers. It's like that was his militia. He had 12 members of his militia. What? That's Jesus. What? What are you talking about? So there is a long tradition in the Bible of God's people bearing arms. The tradition is so strong as to be almost a mandate, but not like a mandate with the gate. Anyway, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, "I am strong." That's Joel 3:10.
Yeah.
Did you end up looking that one up? Really?
Yeah. So this is like basic militia military tactics. Yeah. When it's guerrilla tactics. Yeah. If you aren't allowed to have swords, you sharpen your picks and farming tools, and you use those instead. Which that's something that every revolution since the beginning of time is used.
Yeah, which makes sense. And again, I'm not actually against anybody doing that. Sharpen all the weird shit in your house you want, man, and defend your house the way you fucking feel like with all the sharpened tools you got. Go for it.
But I mean, it goes to the larger aspect of like the story of the Bible and God not being true, because why would we have to do hand-to-hand combat with garden tools if God was really that powerful? Could he just like make our lives good? Do we have to be violently oppressed and then kill our neighbors for our own freedom, covered in blood, permanently scarred by the emotional trauma of hand-to-hand combat with other human beings? Like, because none of this story makes any sense.
Right. He sounds like the gods from like that Cabin in the Woods movie or something. He just wants bloodshed.
Yeah, it's like that. He does everything he can to make the Jews have to kill and fight and never be at peace as he possibly can.
Oh, the guy. Yeah, he sounds terrible. Sounds like an asshole, really.
Yeah.
Uh, so there is a also a strong tradition of the militia concept. They will all hold swords. This is a quote. So they will all hold swords, being expert in war. Every man hath his sword upon his thigh because of fear in the night. That's the song. Song of Solomon. Come on, that's a song. Like, isn't that that's just a song,
Yeah,
right?
it's like love poetry. So uh
Jesus Christ.
3-8. Oh, so I did look this one up too. So what I'm sorry, I
Okay.
got slightly distracted. So he's talking about how he's claiming that this is saying that you should have swords so that things in the night don't come get you. But that's not what the verse is talking about. It starts out as kind of, Solomon 3 starts out as kind of a love dream, and then he dreams that King Solomon rides up in a chariot flanked by armed guards, and he's describing the 60 warriors that surround his chariot and how they look like they know how to use their swords. So this isn't a call to arms for the regular people at all. This is just a description of this guy having a dream of the king and describing the soldiers that are escorting him in the dream.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, wow. I'd expect nothing less. I just saw it was a song. I was like, oh fuck that. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Like
So
a lot.
in the very next line, he says, "We see not only, or here we see not only an armed citizenry, but citizenry being experts in war." No, we don't. Those were professional soldiers, and it was a poem. We don't actually see anything here.
No. Yeah, and I feel like that's a lot of the like coming up. It seems to be a common theme that he's sort of drawing he's getting rid of completely the distinction between an army person and a regular person, because a lot of the rest of these are like they're this he's talking about Israel, right? And they're fighting different groups. That would be a fucking army of the nation.
Yeah, those
That's
would
not
be
just the citizens.
professional soldiers. There's a difference between a militia and professional soldiers.
Yeah.
And professional soldiers are soldiers all the time, and they are at the whim of the state.
Right, exactly. And that they had that, of course, when in those days with Israel and everything, and it was yeah, they were fighting a bunch of other nations and whatnot. That doesn't. It's just so weird that they would even try to use that. But it says in Samuel 13:19 through 22, we are shown a picture of a government, the Philistines, denying a population the right to bear arms for obviously nefarious reasons, as the founders knew an armed population are citizens, an unarmed population are subjects. Is that uh what? Wait, is that a are we is that defined that way? I feel like that's not. I thought citizens had to do with a democracy and subjects had to do with like feudalism or some shit.
Yeah,
I
but I
could be
mean,
wrong, but
when the country was founded, like the Europe was like the power in the world, and those countries were just beginning to get rid of their feudal systems, right? So like France was still a feudal system, but they were the next to fall. England was still a monarchy. All of the other countries in Europe, besides soon to be France, were still monarchies. So yeah, when they wrote our constitution, that was correct. In modern day, though, not correct. It's not an analogy. We're talking about the 1700s. That's not
right.
the way anything works anymore, and democracy was in its infancy. We were just beginning to think about what modern democracy would look like, and it's not like what they thought it would look like.
No, absolutely not. So is they said okay, so now okay, and so there's this huge quote here. It said, and I guess that's what they were referring to. So it says now there was no smith found throughout all the land of Israel, for the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make them swords or spears, but all the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen every man his share, and his coulter and his axe and his mattock, yet they had a file for the mattocks and for the coulters and for the forks, and for the axes and to sharpen the goads. Sure. Okay. So it came to pass in that day, or in the day that of battle, that there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people that were with Saul and Jonathan, but with Saul and Jonathan, his son, there was found. God, this shit is it's difficult to get through a whole fucking thing of all that nonsense. Okay.
Yeah. So what's happening here? The
Yeah.
Philistines have uh, a monarchy, basically. I mean, they have their ruling class and their royal line, and they don't let the Israelites have weapons. So what do the Israelites do? They form guerrilla tactics. They use, again, we use our our gardening tools, and we use them to rise up. Everybody's seen this in a movie.
Oh yeah.
The yeah,
It's the good guys, going against the bigger. It's the rebels. It's the rebel force
right.
against the empire.
But but this is Saul. Saul becomes the leader, the monarch of Israel. So he doesn't overthrow a dictator and then make everything democratic and awesome. He just becomes the next monarch, founds the nation of Israel, and then does the exact same thing to his people because that's what despots do.
Yeah, that's sort of why we
He's
got rid of that whole.
he's not really the good guy of the story. They say he
No,
is, but he's not. He's just the next despot in line.
right, and he ended up being quite bad as far as I remember. He had some problems there, from what I
Yeah,
remember.
pretty prolific rapist.
Yeah, among other things. Yeah, in First
But
Samuel. Okay,
but
go
wait,
ahead.
he also had to be deposed, didn't he? Didn't Saul eventually get deposed violently?
Shit, I think you're right.
Because he
Because
was also a fucking evil despot.
yeah, well, because wasn't he like trying to murder David all the time because he was so scared that he would like take over the
Yeah.
throne or some
And
shit?
David had to go back to the people that Saul had defeated and help them rise up. And he took power and became a despot too. This is just how it's done. This doesn't have anything to do with a militia. This is
No.
just how power transferred hands back then.
Yeah, back in the fucking like days when you had kings and yeah, Jesus Christ. That's funny. Yeah, good call. So in First Samuel 25:13, we see David calling out the militia. David said to his men, every man gird on his sword. So every man girded on his sword. And David also girded on his sword. Oh my God. It is important to note that every man strapped on his sword. Holy shit. Yes, we get it. They were not issued weapons, not from a government armory. Their weapons were already in their possession, being kept and ready to bear.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because that's what happens when you live in a lawless place ruled by a desperate. There's bandits everywhere. This is
right.
the most modern thing I've read about this is this was happening in Russia before the revolution too. The king just didn't get, or the czar didn't give a shit about his people, and bandits were on the roadway all the time. This is what despotism looks like. And this isn't a militia. This is a revolution. This is people having enough and taking their shovels and using it to tell the powers that be that they've had enough. This has
Yeah.
nothing. This has nothing to do with defending our democracy.
I mean,
This
it's
is a
basically a military at that point, right? I mean, it's just it's they don't have a military. They're coming against these people as if they have a military, right?
no, but you can only be so bad to a population before they rise up and overthrow you. And once that balance gets tipped, you get revolution, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just what happened. But again, this isn't people defending a democracy and saving a nation state. This is just how power was transferred back in the Bronze Age
Exactly. Yeah.
violently. And if God was real or was a decent being at all, he could put a stop to this instantly. Why are we following this? The model is bad.
Yeah, exactly. And that you're right. That's a good point. That all this bloodshed is it's crazy that I mean, it's pretty obvious. So what they're doing is they're trying to justify their crazy actions with this storyline, and just doing what they felt like they had to do at the time, and then be like, but this is what God wanted too, and because we're the chosen one, whatever. I mean, it's their whole like justification for their bullshit. Because God's not real, and they didn't do any of this.
No.
Uh, but the Bible is quite clear on the matter and lays the foundation for the Second Amendment. Okay. A well regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. They basically just repeated what's in the Constitution while sort of blowing past the whole militia thing without, again, well regulated militia, and they're acting like those words aren't there.
Yeah, I think we missed a little part about Moses here. They're
Oh,
claiming that the people following Moses around in the desert were an example of a militia.
what?
And well, yeah, I mean that one's apt, but then again, they didn't make a free people. They made another despotic monarchy, and it was like Sherman's march to the sea across the Middle East into Israel, the slaughtering and burning everything in their path, killing men, women, and children. And then they formed another despotic government when they got to the end of it.
Let's do the same thing once we got that'll fix it.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. It's
So, I
like,
mean, he started with a militia of sorts, I guess, and ended it with another terrible nation state that ruled through fear and bloodletting.
my God. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's why these are terrible examples to use.
Yeah,
uh, so it's our founders are wise and godly men, and they realized that our creator
mostly
wanted
not godly men.
no, yeah.
There was a
Couple.
few for sure.
Right, a couple. I created one all men to have the tools they needed to defend their faith. See, again, to defend their faith, that's freaky. Their families, sure. Their lives, yeah. And their freedom, okay. But life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is the short list of the inalienable rights God has endowed on all men with, and the right to keep and bear arms undoubtedly has a prominent place in the complete list. This is born out of the Holy Scripture. Wow.
Tell that to the Philistines that had to live under Israeli occupation.
Right. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
the government actually defends your faith. That's why it's in the Constitution. That is like protected by the government. So this idea that we have to rise up against the government to protect that right is sort of crazy in our country.
Yeah. I mean,
It's governmental authority that makes it so you can be religious.
but you can see how they get there with all of their like crazy conspiracies and everything. Like the fact that they think that some, of course, it's Jewish, like cabal has like taken over the government or whatever,
Yeah.
all the most powerful places, and they're like, "Oh, we need our guns to fight these evil Jews."
And
But
isn't it weird that it comes back to the Jews, though? So in this article, he's praising the Jews for being powerful despots. But then when we get to us, the Jews are the bad guys somehow.
yeah, because it's funny too, because like you can almost see the like why, the whole like Romans and everything, like why Christianity sort of like was written in Greek and things like that, which was like the main language in Rome, for scholarship and things. It was because they really liked the whole anybody can be saved. There aren't any chosen people. We're all chosen because we're chosen by God. They loved that portion, right? Which was just a bastardization of the Jewish religion. They took the Jewish religion, they were like, yeah, fuck you, we're all chosen, bro. You guys
Yeah.
messed up because you got lost in the desert. So whatever. Yeah, and it kind of goes along with that whole concept.
Yeah. Well, and the phrase inalienable rights God has endowed on men it's like an act of God in an insurance policy. it's just an easy way, like it makes our brains click that, like, yeah, so we're born with freedom. It doesn't say which god, it doesn't say there is a god. It's just a catchphrase to know that all of this portion here is encompassed by this tiny little phrase. It doesn't actually mean anything.
Right, because a lot of the founding fathers, like the whole universe coming into existence without anything like a sentient mind was not really a thing that was considered at the time. So like you had a lot of what are they called, deists,
Yeah,
right?
deists.
So
The
yeah,
the the watchmaker theory.
yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. They like believed that it created everything, and it was just like, all right, see ya, and just like
Yeah,
took, you know.
God built the watch, wound the watch, and then took the fuck off.
Exactly, yes. But it's just, I don't know, it's kind of funny how it works like that 'cause, they shit, there was a point I was gonna make. Go ahead.
It's okay. Yeah. So the God-given rights thing it makes me insane because it's just it's it should be replaced with natural rights.
Yes,
Like
because
you
that's
have
what they
the
are, right?
yeah, but at the time it was written, everybody believed that God existed because you couldn't. Science was in its infancy at the time. So God-given rights is how they would explain what we'd call natural rights.
Right, exactly. And inalienable means that, like, if an alien came here, they couldn't have those rights, because it's
No,
inalienable.
because fuck them. They're the next people we're going to conquer with plowshares and garden tools, and we're going to hack them to death, and we're going to write poetry about it. And 2,000 years from now, they're going to be they're going to be justifying the use of robotic kill drones
Right.
and using our writings about slaughtering these aliens to do it.
Exactly. Jesus Christ. Well, that was really that was a doozy there. I hadn't found something that crazy and like and political, like as far as like some of these articles I'm looking through. Most of them are just stupid religious articles, you know what I mean? And so that one was really fun because it just kind of like linked to a political argument that, but in the most batshit way. It was, yeah, perfect.
And again, none of the examples they use. Every time I've been on your show, Brent, every single time they try to justify with the Bible, it is not what they say it is. Not at all.
Yeah, they love to just like they love to cherry pick. It's as long as the crazy thing is that they do it to. I've sat there and watched people like these pastors and stuff, and people that are highfalutin in the church disagree about shit, and then pull out like sentences and be like, "But they use the word if there, okay? They use the word if," and they'd be like, "Well, my translation doesn't use it. Well, your translation's stupid then. Why do you?" They would get like all. It's amazing how like they would fight over these little like these words and these tiny little concepts within their holy book. It's hilarious.
Yep, translation errors in the perfect book.
Yeah, come on. I mean, that honestly, dude, as far as like what like the kind of deconstructed everything to me the most was the fact that everybody believes something different and everybody thinks they're right. And the Holy Spirit is supposed to be this powerful being that's supposed to communicate the word of God to the people, and it seems to just be fucking with everybody by giving some of these people, oh, I'll tell them one thing, and I'll tell these people over here another, and oh no, it's cool to use the gifts of the Spirit, and then all these, oh no, it's not, no, it's not, that's against the rules. Like it's amazing to me. I think that's that one is the biggest problem. It's the biggest thorn in the side, if you will, of religion in general. I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. This could all be solved with, if it's a perfect book, are bats birds.
I mean, the bats
And
birds thing fucks them big time, dude.
yeah, and it's not, so the book's not perfect, so now we have to throw it away.
Yeah, because how could they think bats were? Why did they think that? That was stupid, right?
Yeah. Is the mustard seed the smallest seed?
That
No.
was
Book's not perfect. Let's throw it away.
that was the first one. That's so funny you brought that up because that was one of the biggest. That was like one of the first things to really like make the dominoes start to fall. Like somebody asked that it was like in an atheist thing, and I was still a Christian, and I was like watching like non-religious videos and stuff, and I was looking, and somebody was asking like random people on the street, like, "Hey, what's the smallest seed?" and I think it was Eli Bosnick actually. The
Yep,
this
I
meeting
remember
guy.
that. That's actually what I was thinking of when I said both of those quotes.
No shit.
At Reason Rally, he was going around trolling the protesters. Yep.
Yes. And that one messed with me because I was like, oh, I know this. It's mustard seed. And he's like, nope, not even close. And I was like, fuck you, man. I went and looked it up. It's like, oh shit, no,
Yeah, it's not even
orchid,
close.
the orchid seeds got it. Okay.
Oh, are those smaller than poppy seeds? I always figured it was poppy seeds, but I never looked it up.
Oh shit, I think it was the orchid was what I got.
Oh
If I
no, you're
remember
probably right. I was
'Cause I
just
just
going
remember
off
that.
seeds that I had seen.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Let's check real quick. Let's both do our independent. Smallest seed. Yeah, let's see. And that sucks because Christian News comes up first. So let's see. Wow, it's all mustard. Oh, because I messed up my algorithm now. See, that's what that is.
Yeah, you have. You've destroyed your algorithm. You're now being fed bullshit on purpose.
Exactly. I'm like, wait, where's like the okay? Let me put scholarship, scholarly articles. That's so funny.
Chia seeds are pretty small. They're definitely smaller than mustard seeds.
Okay. Hey, all right.
This is taking me down a rabbit hole I don't have time for now, Brent.
I don't mean it. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. I'm pretty sure it's the orchid seed, but I can't find anything with my new algorithm.
I believe you. You are more reliable than the Bible. I'll just take your word for it.
Thanks so much for coming. This is a lot of fun. We'll definitely be getting back with you soon. I got a couple episodes coming out of a guest is coming on and stuff like that. So, but after that's done, we'll definitely have you back and do some more deep research.
Cheers, man. Have a good night. Happy New Year. And I'm always around if you need me.
All right. You bet, man. Take it easy.
Take it easy.